We're assuming, here we go. All right, welcome, everybody. It's 4 PM on Thursday, December 14th, 2023, and this is the New Ulm Library Board meeting. We have an agenda. We need to approve the agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now we've got minutes to approve from our November 9th meeting.
I'll make a motion to pass the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions about the minutes from the November meeting? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now we move on to the financial report. April?
We are 93.15% through 2023, and our budget is approximately 87.55% expended. Bills that we paid during November included $1,526 to EBSCO for our annual magazine subscriptions, $46 to Plunkett's for quarterly pest control services, $2,087 to Summit Fire Protection for fire extinguisher inspection and maintenance, and to replace 4 of our fire extinguishers that had reached the end of their lives, and $341 to Verizon for our monthly service to the 8 Wi-Fi hotspots. Last month, I mentioned that the travel conferences and school line is overspent. It appears overspent, but that's not true because we received honorariums from Traverse de Sioux and the travel grant from the Minnesota Department of Education. So that line is actually approximately 62% expended. And on the page 8 of your packet, under the revenue lines, those grants are recorded in the other state grants and other local grants line there to offset those expenses. And then I just, again, noted the same information as last month, that our computer supplies and equipment line also appears overspent. That is not because of that Public Library Association digital literacy grant that we received for laptops.
Okay. Any questions or comments about the financials? One more month, and then we're at year end.
I do have a couple updates that I wanted to give on things to be aware of
Okay.
coming
Good.
in the future. The city IT director and city manager are recommending that departments look at prioritizing security projects. And so one thing that we had budgeted for this year was $5,000 from the fund balance for security cameras. We had a change in our city IT person. So during that break, we kind of put that project on hold because I didn't feel equipped to look at that myself. And now that we're coming back around to it and looking at the scale of the project, $5,000 is not enough for what we need at the library. So I'm working with the new city IT director to get quotes for adding security cameras to the library, and I'll likely be bringing that to you in early 2024 to take a look at those quotes.
Talk a little bit about the number of security cameras and the placement of the security cameras, and if there's anything other than cameras that would go into a security update.
Sure. So we're looking, we made a list of kind of the ideal locations that we'd like, and based on the layout of the library, it's kind of a tough plan. We need a lot of cameras. I think we're looking at over 20 cameras, and that's kind of minimal coverage in the library, not every nook and cranny. So what we're really looking to cover are the areas where the public is and where the public has access to materials and equipment. When I worked at the West Fargo Library, we used cameras to, like, if somebody's bike got stolen out of the parking lot, we could help with that, or if there was a fender bender, we had cameras outside, which I think we would want in certain places at our library. We use cameras to review, like, if we had an incident in the library, we could kind of see the timeline of what happened, those kind of things. So it's mainly about safety, and then if something were to walk off, we could potentially see what happened.
Good. Anyone else have any questions or comments or information that you feel you need before we move on?
I just, go
Go
ahead.
Carl.
Go ahead.
So were you looking to have the spend be done this year then, or would that roll into next year?
Since it's coming from the library's fund balance, it can happen at any point. We've received one quote so far. We're waiting on another one. So,
And do you know about what we're talking about instead of 5,000 or?
I don't want to release the information of the
Okay.
quote for other
right.
vendors, but I think
Okay.
it could be, maybe roughly 30,000, just depending. Wow. Yeah, it's significant. And then, so that's all the equipment conduit up front. And then kind of our year-to-year cost would be to replace any cameras that have quit and to, I think there would be probably like a $1,000 to $2,000 software platform fee that we'd probably have to pay annually.
Okay.
I was going to ask April, since you mentioned it, would part of your review be to assess those areas that are now accessible to the public to restrict some access in some places, which may in turn reduce the number of cameras that might be required, or are all those places required to keep those open to the public? I mean, that's, I guess, a question that you guys may discuss as you're reviewing that project.
That's certainly something we could consider. One example that comes to mind is our meeting room. But NewCat has their offices there, and they often have patrons coming in hoping to meet with them. We have, patrons that rent the meeting room for use, and so locking doors sometimes can prohibit their access to that. We have some self-directed groups like the art group where they're a library program, but we don't necessarily have to have staff sitting with them the whole time. And so having the meeting room open for those kind of things is important. So it's a little tricky to restrict access, especially with all of the different levels we have in the library.
Yeah, true. Well, it's
Thank you.
Along those same lines, I have a little bit more for you.
Sure.
We've been looking at needing to replace the doors that are nearest to the book drop. Those doors are, I think, as old as that building, and the latching is becoming a problem on them. And we've been able to make some temporary things, but as the weather gets colder and then it warms up again, we keep having to make these same fixes. And so those doors are just reaching the end of their lives and need to be replaced for the building security. So I've been trying for quite a few months now to get quotes on those doors, and I haven't had a lot of interest from vendors to give quotes. I don't know if the project just isn't appealing based on the size of other projects that they've been asked for. So I'm continuing to pursue that, but that would also be something that we'd come to the board with, likely as a fund balance request. The other thing that the IT director has recommended doing with that would be to add key fob access to those doors so we don't have so many keys. And then we can restrict access for different staff members by time of day, day of the week, those kind of things. So like, not everybody would need access on Sunday because the library is closed, but Megan and I might, so that we could go in an emergency if we needed to address something. So we're looking at adding key fob access to the entrance that needs to be replaced, as well as the other entrance on the west side of the building there.
Okay.
That goes into the hallway by Children's. So I'm continuing to just reach out to vendors to see if I can get some quotes on that project.
All
But
right.
I've had a little bit of trouble making headway there. We, with looking at these fund balance projects, our fund balance currently sits at about 51% of our operating budget for 2024. Kind of the recommended range is 30 to 50%. If we spend the $25,000 that we've budgeted for next year on meeting room furniture fund balance, and then for these projects, I think we'd be looking at sitting around 45% of the balance, but it just would depend on what range those projects come in at. I'd be happy to answer any questions about
All right.
that.
Anybody else have any questions or comments or? Thank you.
And then one more budget
Sure.
update. I mentioned several months back that we were looking at applying for the Mellon Foundation's Memory Lab grant. And we asked the Friends of the Library to be our fiscal agent for that. And after we got further into that process, we looked at some of the information that the Mellon Foundation had provided about how that might affect your organization's tax status. And that grant is too large for the Friends to act as the fiscal agent. It would change their tax status and cause a lot of complications for them. So we did a lot of talking with the Mellon Foundation, and they're willing to make the grant directly to the library, to the city. And I talked with the city manager and the finance director, and they didn't have any concerns with that. So we submitted a first draft. They're willing to do up to 3 drafts with us. And kind of the sense that I got is, unless they find any major issues along the way, as long as your drafts continue to move forward, the grant is something that we could likely see. Because they're not really wanting to put in all that work with libraries that they just are going to not grant with at the end. So as long as we don't have any hiccups in the process, I think there's a good chance we could.
Okay. Well, good. You
Participate
feel
in
good about that. Good. Good work. Good work. Anything else about the money? All right. All right, we'll move on to staffing.
Okay. So we filled our youth services aide position. We made an offer that was accepted. That individual is starting January 2nd. So we're excited for that. We completed interviews for the library aide position last week, December 5th. We've made an offer. We're waiting to hear back from that individual as to whether they're going to accept it or not.
Okay.
So we'll have an update for that for you at our next month's meeting. And then last month, I was asked, do we know how people hear about our job postings? Because you had noticed that we are posting more on Facebook about those things. I talked with our HR director, and yes, that information is asked during the application process. It's not part of what I receive when we get the applications from HR. And this latest go-around of applications, a lot of them marked that they had heard about our jobs on Indeed.com.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to note, we've been working on looking, right now we have staff that are considered, all of our staff do circulation duties except for our library aides who reshelve the books and keep our collection neat. And we had this kind of distinction between a reference staff person and a non-reference staff person. And modern libraries don't really operate that way anymore. Anyone who works at the desk answers reference questions because the way you answer reference questions has changed. And so we were looking at how to make that distinction clear for our staff as to when to hand off a question, when not to hand off a question. And we just came to the conclusion that it wasn't serving us or our patrons well anymore to have to say, I have reached the end of what I can do. Can you get someone else? When it didn't seem like a very clear delineation to our patrons. And so what we did is we looked at 3 of our part-time positions, the library aides, the youth service aide, and the reference aide. And we updated all 3 of those job descriptions this year.
Okay, so you looked at those 3 types of job descriptions, right? Okay.
Yes, because those are the 3 we targeted because the library aides were considered non-reference positions.
okay,
And the
okay.
other 2 were considered
All right,
reference. And so we were having library aides hand off questions that they were all probably capable of answering, but based on their job description, they were not supposed to. So we updated them, and the library aide position especially read as a very clerical position where they're checking books in and out, answering phones, those kind of things. And they do those things, but that is by no means the limit of what we need for those positions to be able to do for the library. So we've updated those job descriptions, worked with the HR director to do all of that, checked in with the city manager, and those positions were repointed as part of that because the skill level we're asking those people to have is increased.
All right. Now, when you use the term repointed,
Yes.
I was just wondering, I'm not sure everybody understands that point system. I know Carl does, and I know I do, but, can we
Maybe
talk
for the
about that?
audience, you
What?
would like to know.
Yes, so, well, help me out, Carl. When did the government start using those point systems in order to determine comparative worth? You know, in order to be fair, in order that people are compensated based on what they do, there was a system. There we go. Now he's going to jump in and tell.
Early 90s,
Okay,
pay equity law was passed,
okay.
and as part of that, public employers were required to have all of their positions analyzed. And using it, I think at the time the city used what was called the Hay study. And they reviewed all of the positions and assigned them points based upon the requirements of the positions. So you'd start out with a city manager would have the highest number of points. And then, you know, it would descend from there. And so those points, all the positions within a certain grouping of points should be essentially paid similarly. You can discount for certain things, but generally speaking, and this is just kind of the top of what this is all about. There's more depth to it, certainly. But so if they're repointed, that means they're going to get more points, and essentially they may be bumped up to a different grouping of pointed positions, and it would be required to be paid more. And then you would look at, you know, are they female-dominated positions or are they male-dominated positions? And, you know, that, in the end, when you have all your positions paid or set their wages for all those positions, you have to have a certain balance of female positions in a point group that are getting paid what they're supposed to, as well as males. And if you're out of balance between male and female, then you have problems with the state and have to adjust wages.
So, thank you. But basically, it's based on the statute, and you reminded me it was in the early 90s. I thought it came earlier. But basically, there's supposed to be an objective way of figuring out, you know, how somebody should be paid if you've got a government job. So what I understand you're saying is that when you looked at the job descriptions, you realized that more skill was really needed to do what they should be doing, right?
Because we really rely on our part-time staff to keep the library moving, to keep our patrons receiving the services that they need, so that, you know, the youth services librarian can focus on building that collection and planning programs and things, and our programming and technology services library can focus on helping people in the memory lab and planning adult programs, so that other staff can do the other things that we need to do. And this distinction between these reference questions was kind of gumming that process up for us. And and the job descriptions were limiting how those staff could support the rest of the team.
Good.
I'm glad you pointed that out. No, because I thought she meant reappointed.
Oh.
So I didn't know there was a repoint system, so that's good.
Right.
And
Well-
the reason I bring there's no action the library board
No,
needs to take.
but we
that,
should know.
The salaries line is not one that you approve as part of your budget process or anything like
Right.
that. But I mentioned it because that changed is official the 1st of January. And so you're going to probably see in our notes coming up that we've been doing a lot of training to make sure that those library aides who are now going to be able to answer more questions have the knowledge that they need to do those things. So.
Right. You think they have this skill, you think that position should have the skill, but you're going to make sure by doing the training. Good for you. No, it's good. We
So
have a
did the-
well-run library.
So the repointing then, will that result in a salary increase?
Yes.
Because they're, okay.
Yep.
Positions.
Yeah, right, good. Well,
Was that only for the aide positions, or was it for all positions were repointed?
No, just those three. Because-
just three were well, just the three were reappointed. Good. It's not easy, you know,
We spent several months reviewing and talking. Megan was really helpful with rewriting, especially because she was looking at kind of the the actions of, what are we asking people to do. So
Right.
her experience was really invaluable for
Right, good,
that, too.
good. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anybody else have any questions about points? We've all got points. We need my points. Good, good, good. Thank you. All right. Move on to the Library Department Activities Report and Statistics.
The Friends of the Library had their annual book sale on November 2nd through 4th. The sale was well attended, and they had a great group of volunteers to help. So our Friends president, AJ Tower, seemed really pleased with how everything went. Their proceeds totaled $2,012, and I think about $500 of that was membership renewals as well. So I just want to say a huge thank you to the Friends and the volunteers who helped with that sale. That's no small task, and just their willingness to give their time and energy and care to the library is really astounding.
So what happens to the books that don't get sold? They just get put back into storage and brought out next time, or?
We have kind of a free cart in our entryway where we put stuff that we haven't been able to unload otherwise. And if it gets on the free cart, it'll go. So they've put some items there. So we just have been keeping that refilled. And then they have taken some of the other materials left over to thrift stores and stuff periodically to see if someone else will try and sell those. And then also, they've started a new process the last couple of years under kind of AJ's guidance, where they do a lot of sorting of materials before the sale to pull out things that are maybe not in good enough condition to sell. Things like Harlequin romances that just don't go, those kind of things.
They
So-
used to.
Yeah, but if you put a big box of them free, someone will take that whole box. So they did a lot of prep work too that really helped it go more smoothly.
And this is not their first rodeo.
Yeah.
No, not
Yeah,
at all. No. Related to our conversation about the reference positions, on November 3rd, the reference librarian and the reference aide trained library staff on using our MinLink system to order interlibrary loan items. So that's the system we use to get access to materials throughout the state, not just our region. So that was our first training, and then in December, we did some training on how to help patrons on the public computers as well. In July, you accepted a $6,000 grant for the digital literacy, from the Public Library Association. And we've been working with the city IT department to prepare the laptops we purchased with that grant money. And Leroy, our programming and technology services librarian, actually this afternoon was at the second session of computer classes that we've done with those laptops in partnership with the CAST group here in New Ulm. And so as part of that grant, I think we're required to reach, I think it was 30 individuals with technology classes, so we're well on our way there. Our senior outreach program continues to grow. We've been delivering books, audiobooks, and DVDs to 4 senior care facilities. Lisa Sieve, our reference librarian, does a lot of the deliveries. Megan helped out with that this week. And the staff at the senior living facilities that we visit are really great advocates for getting residents to come to our visits and check out materials. So big thank you to them for getting residents to participate in that program. And we're continuing to issue new library cards to those patrons as we visit as well. And then I just wanted to note that Creative Bug, which is a digital resource that we have, will sunset at the end of 2024. This is a resource that we introduced in 2020, and it is an online platform of classes for crafts and art. So you can go on and learn how to do different kinds of fabric dyeing, crocheting, knitting, doodle classes. There's just a wide variety of arts and craft classes in there. And that was a subscription that TDS had purchased for the region with Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund money to help patrons who were spending more time at home, especially during that initial part of the pandemic. Use is down now, and just based on the cost, we didn't find it was worth it to continue. So the library directors recommended to the the TDS board that it be sunset at the end of 2024. We knew that some libraries had a handful of programs planned already using the platform in 2024, so we said, well, if you can continue to the end of 2024, that would be reasonable. So they'll go one more year using the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund money with that program, or that resource, excuse me, and then it will be done at the end of 2024.
Yeah, good. Yeah, right. The pandemic years,
Right.
right?
But in good news, our print circulation is holding steady year over year.
Yes.
Libby circulation continues to increase dramatically each year. And we have a resolution related
Right.
to that. Our computer use is trending upward, and our visits are building back too, our physical visits to the
Great.
buildings.
Great. Questions, comments?
So in the statistics table, currently have, reference questions at the service desk and the children's desk. But now with the changing of the definition of the aides, is there going to be another category? Or are they not going to tabulate, questions that they may get asked?
No, they'll just
reference-wise?
get to participate in answering them, so they'll get to mark down that they're answering these questions too.
Okay.
And those stats, those reference question stats are things that we have to track for the state's annual report.
Good question. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on to programming for December.
Just a note that we're closed on December 25th and January 1st for Christmas and New Year's. On Thursday, December 21st at 7 p.m., we have the Armstrong Boulevard Brass Quintet. That is, we received a grant through TDS with Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund money.
And they're fabulous.
Yes, they've performed several times.
Want to get in the
with
Christmas
library.
spirit.
They performed at Springfield a few weeks ago, and it was standing room only.
Oh.
They had people out in their hallway because they had so many people.
What time is that?
The one at New Ulm is 7 p.m. on December 21st
Where's that at?
in our meeting room. Yeah. And then on Wednesday, December 27th at 1 p.m., we have another program, a music program, Siama and Dallas Congo Music. And that is Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund money as well. So they'll perform traditional Congo music. And then on Friday, December 29th at 2 p.m., we have our no school afternoon movie. We'll be watching Pixar's Inside Out. And a thank you to the Optimist Club. They sponsor our movie license
yes.
at the library.
Great. Thank you, optimists.
Yes.
Good. Anything else? Anything else you want to note? Otherwise, we'll move on to a Brown County Library Board update.
The Brown County Library Board met on Monday, November 13th at 7 p.m. at the Hanska Library. We kind of did a recap of our budget appropriations request process. No new information there from what happened in August, but the board discussed positions that would be opening up on the board, including Carl's, which it expires December 31st of this year for the Brown County Library Board. He'll still be on the New Ulm board. But I talked with Yvonne Weber, and she's willing to move from alternate to our representative. So I sent that information to the county administrator. But if anyone would be willing to be the alternate for that board, we would be looking for that. So if you
Alternate.
want to consider that and let me know if you're interested, I'd be happy to fill you in on how that works. And I'm sure Carl could add some insight to that too, if you'd like to know more.
And how often do you meet?
Just twice a year in June and November.
Okay.
And then at that meeting, last year, we had made kind of a mid-year update to the county commissioners, and the board decided to do that again, where we just talk about how the money is being spent at our Brown County libraries and kind of where we are at with some of our statistics. So they asked me to prepare that information and set up the meeting, so I'll be sending that information out to the Brown County board members
Good for
early
you.
next year.
Good. Questions, comments? All right, we're moving on. strategic plan, everybody has one.
Don't they ought to?
Everybody has a strategic plan. Updates?
So the biggest update is that we have a draft.
We have a draft.
So this past month, we spent a lot of time with the library staff writing the activities plan. And then the committee worked to refine kind of the pieces of that activities plan as well as the measures and outcomes there. It's pretty self-explanatory. We have our introduction here, and then you have the one page that has our mission, our vision, our values, and then our goals and objectives, and then we move into the action plan where we talk about what we're going to do to meet those goals and objectives.
Right, and we're really at the activities section, what's going to be done. We've gone over several times the goals and the mission and that, but what we're really looking at is what actions are going to be taken, what's going to be done. And so I hope everybody's had a good chance to do that. One of the things we did at the last strategic plan meeting was try to sort of it seemed like there were like too many things. You're biting off more than you can chew.
Doubling up, too. Seemed like we doubled up quite a bit, so we kind of
Right,
trimmed.
right. So,
I'd be happy to answer any questions or give more explanation to anything that you're curious about.
Well, I guess one of the things that strikes me, and some time ago when we wrote the prior strategic plan, and now this one, is that I think it's imperative to have a successful plan to do the follow-up work during the course of the plan, the years that it's in effect. And I think it sounds like from listening to what you have attached to the agenda materials that you have given that obviously some thought, and it sounds like there's steps in place, procedures in place to do that. And I think that following up and making sure that those things happen are again imperative to a successful plan.
it's nice of you to say, Carl. I know the staff has worked really hard on it. So now some of these items might require spending some money. So and that's okay. There's just no we can't stand still. If there's something that is needed in the library to fulfill our mission and reach our goals, and we have to go to the city council and ask for a bump up in spending, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do that. I think that most of the board members would agree with that. We've got a beautiful library. I've had friends who've recently moved to New Ulm who said, before I moved here, I went to the library. I wasn't going to move to a town that didn't have a decent library. So, no, it's important. It's important. So,
And I think we really tried to keep in mind the things that would be big ticket items and really refine what would be the most important, anyway.
right, exactly.
But it's also spread out over the next few years. It's not all
Yes.
going to be done next year, so.
Right,
So we can plan for it and budget for it. And-
right.
But I want to comment, I like the format of it, how it looks, how it flows. You've got the mission, vision, values, and that goes into the goals and objectives. And then as you go down, it breaks up those goals and objectives into the activities. And it's an easy to read format. It doesn't, you don't get the glazed over look like, I'm not going to read this.
Well, we're going to be moving forward. We'll be adopting it at the next meeting.
Yep.
We did, we did plan that if there were objections to certain things, or if there was a feeling of this board that things were going in the wrong direction, that we could have another meeting, but I'm not hearing any of that. I'm really not hearing any of that.
I think the
Good.
committee's done an excellent job.
Well, we had a lot of fun.
And April did quite a bit
job.
in the staff, so.
Oh, yeah. Right. Good.
And this is a living document, so it's something that I would like the board to review, you know, somewhat informally, but at a meeting each year. And I can be happy to give updates on progress we've made on what we thought we could accomplish that year.
Right.
And then if something happens that changes our perspective on certain activities, we can update as we go.
Oh, great.
And I just want to give a shout out to the committee, all the ideas and the work that they've put in. I just really appreciate it. So thank you to our board members, Hope and
Yeah.
Ruth Ann, who are on there, our community members, Carolyn Carmichael and Margaret Blomberg, Megan Kitterman, our assistant library director, and then Catherine Tatnall, our youth services librarian,
Yes.
and Ann Anderson, our library
right.
aide.
Good. Good. Well, this is out of order, but what a wonderful article about
Yeah,
Miss
the paper.
Catherine in the
Yeah.
paper,
Yes,
really.
wasn't that wonderful?
Just fabulous, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So,
There was an
all right.
article in the paper.
Oh, okay.
yeah. So, well, I think we're going to move on. We'll look at this again tomorrow, next month. And now we have a resolution. Why don't you talk about this?
Okay.
Well, you talk about it, and then I'll read it.
Okay. So I received an email from, every month, there's a couple people who do Libet purchasing on behalf of all the libraries in TDS, and they happen to be at the Martin County Library right now. That's changed over time as staff people trickle in and out of libraries in the region, but and every month they do this really nice thing where they send out these graphics and links to collections that we can use to post on Facebook to promote Libby. And in the last email of that we got, they said, you know, we are really at a point where we could use some more funds into our account to purchase items for Libby, because a lot of titles, especially the more popular ones, have what's called metered access, where you get so many uses, and then once you go through those uses, you no longer own that title. And so we had a lot of titles that were metered where we still had holds on them, but we had run through all of our uses. And so they put a call out to see if any libraries who were wrapping up budgets for the end of their year could contribute extra money.
So, right, and if the book is hot, it's hot. Everybody wants to read Lessons in Chemistry, or everybody wants to read The Remarkably Bright Creatures, or everybody wants to read Tom Lake or something. You know, they're hot. So,
And I didn't separate it out here. This is total, the statistics that were included in this resolution are total ebooks and e-audiobook use.
yeah.
But the e-audiobook use especially has really exploded.
Okay.
And a lot of
Oh,
those
right.
are a metered use.
well, I'm one. So, all right, I'm going to go on with the resolution. New Ulm Public Library Board Resolution Number 2023-22, our 22nd resolution of this year, approving expenditure for Libby. The library director requests that the library board approve the expenditure of $3,000 for the purchase of e-materials for Libby. Libby, powered by Overdrive, is Traverse des Sioux regional library platform for downloadable ebooks and e-audiobooks. There are many titles for which the TDS patrons have used all of our purchased uses, but a wait list remains. If approved, funding would come from Fund 211-5500-223-065 Electronic Resources. The library director anticipates excess funds in the 2023 Electronic Resources line due to TDS applying discounts after the library's 2023 budget had been set. The only other planned expenditure for this line is the library's Ancestry Library Edition subscription, which has already been renewed for, and paid for 2023. And then now we have the statistics. I'm going to read them backwards, detailing total Libby checkouts. Starting in 2019, it was 9,465. 2020, it was 12,614. 2021, it was 13,202. 2022, it was 14,778. And through November of 2023, we're at 16,539. So I think that really shows the popularity and that patrons really like this service. So any questions or comments?
Just a quick question, April. The $3,000, how many items does that affect or renew the number of checkouts for?
It varies based on the cost of the item. So, an e-audiobook can cost $100 or more. So, it depending on how many items we can purchase and the price of them kind of
Okay.
varies.
Right,
So
and-
and that price then is based on the popularity, I'm assuming? So if it's super popular and not as readily available, the cost is higher?
I think it kind of can depend, like, they're going to charge more for an ebook if they had higher production for it, probably if they got an actor to read it or something like that. It
Oh, that's
varies, and
interesting.
the publishers have a lot of control over this pricing, which is why it's so expensive.
And do I understand it, we're just throwing that $3,000 into the pot, and Traverse de Sioux is going to make the decisions? Is it, or am I wrong about that?
Yes, so the purchasers who are right now employees of the Martin County Library would do that.
Right.
But we can indicate to them that we want this $3,000 to go towards filling these hold list
Right.
items so that we
Right.
keep those
Good.
moving.
Right.
And I
Good.
think that
That's
was their intent in
right.
requesting money as well.
right. But this isn't going to add more work to you, for you.
No, not at
This
all.
is handled at the regional.
I'll get an invoice
Right.
coded and I'll be done with that.
Good. Okay. Right, you've got enough work to do. I'll take a motion offering that resolution.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second. Sorry.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Anyone else have anything to say about Libby or her younger sister Abby? Well, anyways, quiet. Call the roll.
Sarah? Yes. Dustin? Yes. Vince?
Yes.
Ruth Ann?
Yes.
Manon?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Hope?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Any other business to come before this board?
I think that was plenty.
Oh, this was plenty. This was plenty.
45 minutes.
I know, my God. All right. No other business. Motion to adjourn? Or do I have to just?
Just
I
do
know,
it.
just, we're
Just
done.
do
I'm
it.
done. Done. Adjourned. We're done. Thanks, everybody. Oh, gosh.